The secrets of the ocean. Imagine the Earth from space. Blue. Not just a bit blue, like a robin's egg or a sad emoji, but overwhelmingly blue. We call it the blue planet for a reason. More than 70% of Earth's surface is covered in water. And the staggering part, about 97% of that water is in the ocean. Not lakes, not rivers, not bottled in the fridge. The ocean. Singular. Yes, you heard me. The ocean. See, when we named Drop Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Arctic, and Southern, we're just chopping up one enormous connected body of salty wetness for the sake of maps, shipping lanes, and making middle school geography tests more annoying. In reality, it's one continuous, swirling, sloshing, life-supporting hydrosphere wrapping around the continents like a deep moving skin. And oh, the salt. Let's talk about that. The ocean's saltiness is about 35 parts per thousand. That means if you scooped a 1L bottle of seawater, about 35 g of it, roughly 2 tablespoons, is pure salt. Not just table salt, but a cocktail of dissolved minerals. The 6 most abundant ions of seawater are chloride, sodium, sulfate, magnesium, calcium, and potassium. By weight, these ions make up about 99% of all sea salts. The amount of these salts in a volume of seawater varies because of the addition or removal of water locally. For example, through precipitation and evaporation. Where did it come from? Rain, rocks, and time. Billions of years ago. Rain, slightly acidic because of dissolved carbon dioxide, fell on Earth's rocky crust. It eroded minerals, carrying them in rivers down to the low places, which were conveniently the basins that became our oceans. Over millions of years, the minerals built up. Water evaporated into the sky, but the salts stayed behind. Like that one friend who won't leave your couch. This salinity isn't just flavoring. It's life seasoning. A stable chemical soup that stayed within a fairly tight range for hundreds of millions of years. Too fresh and the marine chemistry would collapse. Too salty and life would shrivel like a slug in a salt shaker incident. Let's clear something up. The ocean isn't just scenic background for beach Instagram posts or a nice place to dunk your toes on holiday. It's the planet's life support system. It's the lungs. Half the oxygen you're breathing right now was made by marine plankton, not forests. The ocean is also the planet's thermostat, soaking up heat in the tropics and shuttling it toward the poles via vast conveyor belt currents. Without it, your local climate would swing from frozen wasteland to desert nightmare faster than you could say polar vortex. It's also Earth's pantry. Fish, shellfish, kelp, all sustenance for billions of humans. And then there's the pharmacy. Countless marine organisms brew exotic chemicals we're only just discovering. Some with the potential to treat cancer, infections, and even depression. Somewhere in the depths, your future prescription could be swimming right now. Now, here's the part where it gets mind-blowing. Imagining the size. The ocean's average depth is about 3,688 m, more than 2 miles down. If you took Mount Everest and gently tipped it into the Mariana Trench, it would still be underwater by over a mile. We're talking about a vertical wilderness as vast as any horizontal continent. And yet, for all its enormity, we've explored less than 20% of it in any detail. The rest remains a dark, cold, pressurized mystery where new species are discovered with nearly every deep dive. In many ways, the deep sea is more alien than the moon. And unlike the moon, it's teeming with life. The ocean is old. Older than your country. Older than the dinosaurs. Older than multicellular life itself. Some of it, we think, came from volcanic outgassing. Water vapor escaping from Earth's molten mantle in the planet's early days. condensing into liquid seas. Some perhaps hitchhiked on icy comets and asteroids slamming into the young planet. Whichever origin story you like best. The fact is the ocean has been here for billions of years, rocking life gently in its cradle. The first single-celled organisms floated here long before any plant dared to green the land. The ocean was home before home had landlines. Here's a few morsels to swirl in your mind as the waves lap at your imagination. The ocean is always moving, not just in surface waves, but in deep, slow currents that take 1,000 years to make a full circuit of the globe. There's more historic treasure under the ocean than in every museum on Earth combined. Sunken cities, shipwrecks, ancient ports, history's attic, flooded. At any given moment, the ocean contains about 20 million tons of gold. Dissolved. You just can't get to it without bankrupting yourself. It is both the largest habitat on Earth and the least hospitable. Cold, dark, crushing, and yet full of creatures that find it perfect. If you're lying in bed right now, picture it. The moon's gravity reaching across space, pulling at the ocean, tilting vast bulges of water toward itself. Twice a day, every coastline breathes in and out with the tide. Even the sound of waves, that endless hush and roar, is a side effect of this dance. The moon's silent silver hand brushing over the sea. You're not just listening to water. You're hearing planetary physics in motion. Now, my dear dreamer, let's descend together and explore the layers of darkness and wander step by step into places where the light fades, the water chills, and life rewrites the rules of survival. Each zone is a different world. Some glowing with living light, some hushed and still as a cathedral, some stranger than any science fiction. Rest easy, my dear listener, and remember, there's only one ocean. It's everywhere, and it's been here all along, breathing under the sky, waiting for you to notice. The epipelagic zone. Picture the ocean as a colossal layered amphitheater, each tier deeper, stranger, and darker than the last. At the very top, bathed in sunlight, is the epipelagic zone. From the surface down to roughly 200 m, 656 feet. This is the only part of the ocean most humans ever see. It's where the sea dazzles in shades of aquamarine and sapphire, where light dances through waves, and where life thrives in impossible abundance. Here, sunlight is the undisputed ruler. Scientists call it the photic zone because enough light penetrates these depths to power photosynthesis. This is the solar-powered engine room of the ocean where marine plants and algae convert sunlight into chemical energy, pumping oxygen into the water and anchoring the entire oceanic food web. The epipelagic zone is alive with a diversity that would make any terrestrial rainforest jealous. And at its foundation lies a microscopic workforce that keeps the whole system running. Phytoplankton form its invisible green heart. Each cell a tiny chlorophyll-powered factory harvesting sunlight to create sugars through photosynthesis. These minuscule organisms not only produce more oxygen than all Earth's forests combined, but also regulate carbon dioxide levels, acting as a vast floating carbon sink. They vary in type from datums with glassy silica shells to flagellate dinoflagellates that can form glowing bioluminescent blooms on warm nights. Feeding on them is an army of zooplankton, drifting animals ranging from barely visible copepods to thumb-sized krill, as well as larval stages of fish, crabs, and other creatures. Their abundance is influenced by factors like nutrient availability from upwelling currents, water temperature, and seasonal cycles. During spring blooms in temperate seas, phytoplankton populations can explode, creating feeding frenzies that ripple up the food chain. This base of life fuels the appetites of small fish, jellyfish, and filter feeders like basking sharks, which constrain thousands of layers of seawater an hour. It supports complex ecological networks and even human economies. Many fisheries depend on healthy phytoplankton and zooplankton cycles, and aquaculture operations monitor these populations closely to ensure sustainable harvests. Environmental changes such as ocean warming, acidification, and pollution can disrupt this balance, leading to harmful algal blooms or collapses in productivity with consequences for the entire marine food web. Above the reefs, parrotfish graze on algae, their beak-like mouths crunching coral to sand. Sleek barracuda patrol the blue-silver torpedoes with eyes like cold steel. Sea turtles glide by with the slow grace of old mariners, sometimes pausing to snack on drifting jellyfish. Dolphins slice through the water in playful arcs, chattering to each other in complex clicks and whistles. And near coral outcrops, schools of ant-has shimmer in oranges and pinks, flashing like living confetti. Coral reefs are the grand architectural marvels of the epipelagic zone, engineered over millennia by countless generations of tiny coral polyp. Each polyp is a soft-bodied animal related to jellyfish, which secretes a hard calcium carbonate skeleton beneath it. As polyp die, and new ones grow on top, they gradually build massive limestone structures that can withstand waves and storms, some dating back hundreds of thousands of years. Geologically, many reefs began as volcanic islands or continental shelves, gradually fringed by corals and shaped by rising and falling sea levels through Earth's climatic cycles. They occur mostly in warm, shallow tropical waters between 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south, thriving where temperatures stay between 20 to 30 degrees, 68 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and light penetrates to the seafloor. There are several types. Fringing reefs hug coastlines. Barrier reefs form farther offshore with lagoons between them and land. And atolls are ring-shaped reefs surrounding central lagoons, often remnants of sunken islands. Coral reefs are complex ecosystems home to fish, crustaceans, mollusks, sponges, sea turtles, seabirds, and more. They provide nursery grounds for many commercially important species, protect shorelines from erosion by absorbing wave energy, and support tourism and fishing industries. Yet they face mounting threats. Ocean warming causes coral bleaching. Acidification weakens their skeletons. Pollution and sediment smother them. And destructive fishing practices shatter their delicate architecture. Conservation measures from marine protected areas and sustainable fisheries to coral gardening and artificial reef building aim to safeguard these underwater cities. The Great Barrier Reef, stretching over 300 kilometers, is the largest of them all and visible from space. A living structure larger than some countries and a reminder of the resilience and fragility of life under the sunlit sea. In cooler waters, giant kelp forests replace corals as the towering cities of the shallows. These sprawling ecosystems are anchored by the holdfasts of brown algae, which grip rocky seafloors and send up long stipes to buoyant golden-brown fronds that can reach the surface and form dense canopies. Kelp can grow at astonishing rates, up to half a meter a day, creating layered habitats much like terrestrial forests, with canopy midwater and understory zones supporting different communities of life. Their geological past ties to periods of cooler ocean temperatures and nutrient-rich upwellings along continental shelves and rocky coasts, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, southern ocean margins, and parts of South America, South Africa, and Australasia. The mix of light, cold water, and nutrients from deep currents fuels their productivity. Within these forests live sea otters, which wrap themselves in kelp to nap without drifting away, acting as keystone predators that keep sea urchin populations in check, preventing the overgrazing that can devastate kelp beds. Schools of fish weave between the fronds like commuters on a morning rush, while harbor seals, sea lions, and seabirds hunt within the kelp shelter. Invertebrates like abalone, crabs, and starfish thrive here, and the detritus from kelp fronds feeds decomposers and deep-water ecosystems far beyond the forest edge. Kelp forests are critical for coastal protection. absorbing wave energy much like coral reefs, sequestering carbon, and supporting fisheries and aquaculture. Threats include warming oceans, pollution, invasive species, and overfishing of key predators, which can tip the balance toward destructive urchin barrens. Conservation efforts involve marine protected areas, restoration projects, planting juvenile kelp, and ecosystem-based fisheries management to maintain the intricate balance that keeps these underwater jungles thriving. The epipelagic zone is also where the ocean meets the atmosphere in a constant exchange of energy and gases. Winds stir the surface, blending oxygen into the water and carrying moisture into the air. This is where storms are born, from gentle sea breezes to typhoons and hurricanes, all fueled by the heat of the sun's war-armed surface. Global currents like the Gulf Stream and the Croyo Current are massive moving rivers within the ocean formed by a combination of wind patterns. Earth's rotation, the Coriolis effect, differences in water density caused by temperature and salinity, and the shape of continents. The Gulf Stream begins in the Gulf of Mexico, flows up the U.S. East Coast, then arcs across the Atlantic toward Europe, carrying warm tropical water thousands of kilometers and releasing heat into the atmosphere. The Croyo Current performs a similar role in the Pacific, flowing northward past Japan. These currents have evolved over millions of years as continental positions, sea levels, and climate have shifted, shaping their paths and strengths. Their importance is vast. They transport heat, nutrients, and organisms, regulate weather patterns and sustain marine ecosystems along their routes. Without the Gulf Stream, much of Europe would be locked in deep freeze, while tropical waters would stagnate in oppressive heat. Both currents feed into the thermohaline circulation, the global conveyor belt of ocean water driven by differences in temperature and salinity, which links all major ocean basins in cycles lasting centuries, mixing waters from the surface to the abyss and influencing climate on a planetary scale. Up here, hunting is an art form. Bluefin tuna can accelerate faster than a sports car, hitting speeds of over 70 kilometers per hour. Sailfish, with their long sword-like bills, slash through schools of sardines, scattering them like silver sparks. Orcas use sophisticated tactics, creating waves to wash seals from ice floes or corralling fish into tight, shimmering bait balls before striking. But prey are not defenseless. Many fish are countershaded, dark on top to blend with the deep when seen from above, pale below to vanish against the bright surface when seen from below. Some mimic drifting seaweed. Others, like flying fish, take to the air, gliding for dozens of meters to escape. The epipelagic zone is anything but silent. Waves crash, wind howls, and life itself creates a symphony. Snapping shrimp generate bubble collapse sounds louder than a gunshot. Humpback whales sing elaborate songs that can carry for hundreds of kilometers. Fish grunt, croak, and drum to attract mates or defend territory. Sound travels about 4 times faster in water than in air, so acoustic messages spread quickly and clearly. For many animals here, hearing is more important than sight, particularly as you near the shadowy lower boundary of this zone. By 200 m down, sunlight dwindles to a dim blue haze. Photosynthesis becomes impossible. The warmth fades too. Surface waters may be a balmy 28 degrees Celsius in the tropics, but down here temperatures plummet to around 10 degrees Celsius. Below lies the meopelagic zone, the twilight zone, where the rules of survival change entirely. The epipelagic zone is the ocean's golden crown, bright, vibrant, and teeming with life. Every flicker of a fish's scale, every sway of a kelp frond, every flash of a dolphin's leap begins with the power of the sun filtering down into this watery kingdom. Soon we will leave the light behind and follow it into the deepening blue. The mesopelagic zone, Welcome to the Mesopelagic Zone, also known as the Twilight Zone. Not the TV one with ominous music, but a vast swath of ocean stretching from about 200 m down to 1,000 m, approximately 650 to 300 feet. Here, sunlight fades into gloom and the world turns a ghostly, endless blue. This is where day and night blur and life adapts to the halfway point between light and total darkness. The Mesopelagic receives just a whisper of sunlight. Too little for photosynthesis. It's enough to tell the difference between day and night, but not enough to support plants or algae. The seafloor is nowhere in sight. Instead, you float in a dim column of water where creatures have evolved extraordinary adaptations to survive. This zone is home to one of the most spectacular and ecologically important phenomena on Earth: bioluminescence. Many organisms here have evolved the ability to produce their own light through a controlled chemical reaction in specialized light-producing organs called photoers. This process involves the molecule luciferin, which in the presence of the enzyme luciferase oxygen, and sometimes coactors like ATP, releases energy in the form of light rather than heat. The colors can range from blue-green, which travels farthest in seawater, to red or yellow in rare cases. Bioluminescence likely evolved multiple times in different lineages over millions of years, as both an offensive and defensive strategy to lure prey, to startle or confuse predators, to camouflage against the faint downwelling light, and to signal potential mates in the darkness. The exact chemical structures of luciferin vary among species, from simple small molecules to complex compounds reflecting diverse evolutionary origins and ecological needs. Tiny plankton flash to startle predators. Deep-sea shrimp shoot glowing clouds like underwater flares. And fish sport headlamps, lures, and twinkling patterns that communicate camouflage or attract prey. The Mesopelagic is filled with creatures that seem like they were designed during a brainstorming session for a sci-fi movie. Each one an evolutionary experiment in surviving the perpetual twilight. Lanternfish dominate in sheer numbers. Some scientists estimate they make up the most abundant vertebrate biomass on the planet. They rise nightly in vertical migrations, feeding in surface waters under cover of darkness before retreating to the dim depths by day. Their flanks are studded with photoers arranged in species-specific patterns, creating constellations in the darkness that may serve for recognition, camouflage, and even communication. Bristle mouths, tiny fish with gaping tooth-filled jaws, may actually outnumber lanternfish in sheer individuals. Their reflective scales and rows of photoers help disguise them from predators below. Hatchetfish have laterally flattened mirror-like bodies that shimmer to match the faint light above, paired with upward-facing eyes adapted to spot silhouettes of prey. Dragonfish among the more fearsome residents possess elongated bodies, dagger-like teeth, and bioluminescent lures. Some even produce rare red light invisible to most deep-sea creatures, giving them a secret advantage when hunting. Squid are common here, too. From delicate, almost invisible glass squid with transparent bodies to the muscular, fast-swimming Humboldt squid, which can grow over 2 m long and hunt cooperatively in coordinated packs. These squid can flash vivid patterns with chromatophores in their skin, perhaps to communicate or disorient prey. Predators like swordfish, tuna, and sharks patrol down from above, using bursts of speed to snatch unsuspecting prey. From the mammalian world, sperm whales and other deep diving specialists make epic descents into the Mesopelagic in pursuit of squid, guided by echolocation through the dim, cold water. Every night, billions of creatures take part in the largest migration on Earth. Not across continents, but up and down through the water column, a phenomenon known as Deal vertical migration. This was first detected during World War II when sonar operators noticed a mysterious false seafloor that rose toward the surface at night and sank again by day. At dusk, animals from the Meopelagic rise to the epipelagic zone to feed under cover of darkness, avoiding the sharpied predators of daylight. By dawn, they descend back to the safety of the dim twilight, completing a round trip that can span hundreds, even over 000m for some species. This daily commute is driven by multiple factors: predator avoidance, feeding opportunities, temperature preferences, and even energy efficiency. Cooler waters below can help conserve metabolic energy between feeding bouts. There are variations. Some species migrate only partway up. Others remain at mid-depths, but adjust their vertical position with the sun's angle. Some populations change their migration patterns seasonally or in response to moonlight. Vertical migration plays a crucial role in the biological pump, a key component of the Earth's carbon cycle. Animals feed in the nutrient-rich surface waters, then excrete waste, release dissolved organic matter or dye in deeper layers, transporting carbon away from the atmosphere and effectively sequestering it for decades to centuries. This massive synchronized movement not only redistributes nutrients vertically, but also connects ecosystems across depths, sustaining predators above and below. Temperatures in the meopelagic drop sharply compared to the surface, often hovering between 4 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees Fahrenheit, to 12 degrees Celsius, 54 degrees Fahrenheit. Pressure builds to crushing levels. At the top of the zone, the pressure is roughly 300 psi, and at the bottom of the zone, the pressure reaches approximately 500 psi. Food is scarce. Most of it drifts down from above as marine snow, a constant delicate drizzle of organic particles, dead plankton, fish scales, fecal pellets, mucus, and other detritus that slowly sinks through the water column. This material forms as the remains of surface-dwelling organisms and their waste clump together, often bound by sticky excretions from microscopic algae. Marine snow can take weeks to months to sink from the surface to the deep, and along the way, it is grazed on by bacteria, small crustaceans, and gelatinous animals, making it an essential energy pathway for deeper communities. It is a critical part of the ocean's carbon cycle, packaging carbon from the upper ocean and transporting it to the depths where it can be stored for centuries or longer. The composition and abundance of marine snow change with seasons, productivity at the surface, and environmental conditions like nutrient upwelling or algal blooms, making it both a barometer of ocean health and a lifeline for the meopelagic's residents. Because there's little light, many predators here rely on silhouettes and motion to hunt. Counter-illumination, where a fish matches the faint light from above with photos on its underside, is a common defense. Others use transparency or reflective scales to vanish into the background. While we rarely visit the mesopelagic, plays a huge role in global ecology. Its inhabitants help regulate carbon cycles, support fisheries by serving as prey for larger species, and form part of a delicate balance that sustains ocean health. Fishing in the mesopelagic is still limited, but there's growing interest in harvesting species like lanternfish for fish meal. Scientists warned that disrupting this zone could have cascading effects given its role in carbon sequestration and as a food source for higher trophic levels. Below 1,000m, sunlight disappears completely and we enter the midnight kingdom of the barelagic zone. But here in the twilight zone, life glows, migrates, and thrives in ways both strange and beautiful. A reminder that even in dim light, the ocean is never truly still. The Bapelagic Zone. Welcome to the Bapelagic Zone, the ocean's midnight kingdom. From 1,000m, 300 feet, down to about 4,000m, 100 feet. Sunlight is nothing but a memory. Here, the world is one of perpetual night, where the only illumination comes from living organisms themselves. This realm is vast, making up majority of the planet's total ocean volume. Yet it remains one of the least explored and most mysterious habitats on Earth. No sunlight penetrates here, Even the faint blue shimmer of the mesopagic is gone. The darkness is complete, and the only light comes from the ghostly pulses and glows of bioluminescent life. Temperature stayed just above freezing between 2 degrees Celsius and 4 degrees Celsius, around 39 degrees Fahrenheit, creating an unchanging, frigid environment. Pressure rises to 400 atmospheres, the equivalent of stacking the Eiffel Tower on your head without flinching. Life here is under constant physical stress from this immense pressure. Yet it thrives, because photosynthesis is impossible at these depths. The Bayapagic relies on energy imported from above. Marine snow, tiny drifting particles of organic matter, continues its slow fall, but by the time it arrives, it has been partially consumed and degraded. Larger and rarer food sources include whale falls, where the carcass of a whale sinks and becomes a temporary island of abundance, supporting entire ecosystems for decades. Dead jellyfish, squid, and even sunken would provide occasional windfalls. Life here has evolved in remarkable ways to endure absolute darkness and immense pressure. Many species have extraordinarily slow metabolisms to conserve precious energy in a food-scarce world, and their bodies are often gelatinous with minimal skeletal structure, reducing the risk of damage under crushing forces. Eyes have followed two distinct evolutionary paths. In some species, they are greatly enlarged and highly sensitive, packed with light-gathering cells to detect the faintest glimmer of bioluminescence. In others, they have regressed entirely, leaving animals blind and reliant on smell, vibration, or electric field detection to navigate and hunt. Many biopelagic predators possess oversized mouths and recurved teeth, ensuring that anything which wanders within reach is unlikely to escape. Expandable stomachs let them make the most of rare feeding opportunities, even swallowing prey nearly as large as themselves. Some species, like the anglerfish, use specialized lures, a glowing esser powered by symbiotic bioluminescent bacteria to draw prey close enough to snap shut their jaws. Gulper eels unfurl their enormous balloon-like jaws capable of engulfing creatures much larger than their slender bodies would suggest. The fangtooth fish, though rarely longer than 16 centimeters, wields teeth so large they require special sheath-like pockets in the skull when the mouth closes. Deep-sea squid drift through the blackness, some with long trailing arms to ensnare prey, and the ability to release a cloud of bioluminescent ink, both confusing predators and providing cover for escape. These strategies together form a gallery of survival tactics, each honed by millions of years in the unbroken night. Not all life here is small. Giant squid patrol the depths, their massive eyes the size of dinner plates tuned to detect the faintest movement. Giant amphipods, scavenging crustaceans, thrive around foods. Bizarre gelatinous creatures like comb jellies drift like living chandeliers, refracting what little light they encounter. Although most of the bathypelagic depends on falling detritus, some fringes of this zone lie near hydrothermal vent fields or cold seeps at its deepest edges. Here, bacteria use chemosynthesis, a process in which they harness energy from chemical reactions, typically oxidizing hydrogen sulfide or methane rather than capturing sunlight. In hydrothermal vent systems, superheated mineral-rich water gushes from the seafloor, delivering hydrogen sulfide that chemosynthetic bacteria convert into organic matter through pathways like the Calvin-Benson cycle or the reverse Kb cycle. In cold seeps, similar microbial processes rely on methane or other hydrocarbons seeping from beneath the seabed. These microscopic primary producers form the foundation of entirely self-sustaining ecosystems independent of the sun-feeding dense aggregations of tubeworms with specialized symbiotic bacteria in their bodies. Massive clams with chemosynthetic gill tissues, blind crabs, shrimp, and other unique organisms. Such vent and seep communities can be astonishingly productive. rivaling shallow water coral reefs in biomass and may offer insights into the origins of life on Earth and potentially life on other worlds with subsurface oceans. The bipolar acts as a major reservoir for carbon-storing organic matter delivered from above for centuries or even millennia. By locking away this carbon, it helps regulate the planet's climate. Its stability over millions of years has allowed for the slow evolution of species uniquely suited to its conditions. Species that may carry biochemical secrets for medicine, material science, and engineering, while it has been spared much direct exploitation due to its remoteness. The Bath pelagic is not immune to human activity. Deep-sea trolling can destroy fragile communities. Microplastics and chemical pollutants have been found even here, and climate change is altering the productivity of surface waters, potentially starving deep ecosystems. The slow life cycles of many bathypelagic species mean recovery from disturbance can take centuries. Below 4,000 m lies the abyssopelagic zone, where pressure increases further, temperatures drop slightly, and life grows even more alien. But here in the bathypelagic zone, in this vast oceanic night, life persists in the face of scarcity and crushing weight. Proof that evolution can find a way in even the most forbidding realms of our planet. The abyssopelagic zone from 4,000 m 13,000 feet down to about 6,000 m 20,000 feet lies the abyssopelagic zone, a realm whose name comes from the Greek word abyssos meaning bottomless. And this is the ocean's silent shadowed expanse. A place of eternal darkness, near freezing temperatures, and pressures so immense they would crush most human-made vessels instantly. Though it may seem inhospitable, the abyss is far from lifeless. It is a slow, ancient world that covers more than half of Earth's surface. The abyssal plains dominate this zone, vast flat expanses of sediment stretching for thousands of kilometers. They are interrupted by solitary seamounts, volcanic ridges, and clusters of abyssal hills. These geological features are often draped in a soft layer of marine snow which settles here after its long fall from the surface. Occasionally, tectonic activity along mid-ocean ridges creates hydrothermal vent fields, releasing mineral-rich fluids that sustain unique chemosynthetic communities. Even at these depths, the seafloor here acts as a vast sediment trap, slowly recording Earth's history, layer by layer. Microscopic shells, dust from deserts, volcanic ash, and even meteorite fragments accumulate, forming a geological time capsule that scientists study to reconstruct past climates. Temperatures stay near 1 to 2 degrees Celsius or 36 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, stable over millennia. Pressure is a staggering 600 times greater than at the surface, enough to dissolve gases differently, alter chemical reactions, and force life to adapt in extraordinary ways. There is no trace of sunlight. The only illumination comes from bioluminescent life or the occasional fleeting glow of a vent. Despite the harshness, the abyss supports a surprising array of life. Most organisms are drivores or scavengers feeding on the steady but sparse fall of marine snow. When a whale carcass sinks, a whale fall, it transforms into an oasis, first attracting scavengers like hagfish and giant isopods, then supporting communities of bone-eating worms and chemosynthetic bacteria for decades. Common residents include deep-sea holtherins, sea cucumbers that creep across the sediment, ingesting it to extract nutrients, brittle stars waving their arms into the current to capture drifting particles, amphipods scavenging in packs and giant isopods lumbering across the mud. Abyssal grenadiers patrol the plains with slow, energy-efficient movements while tripod fish balance on their extended fin rays facing into the current to catch passing food. Survival here requires extreme specializations honed over millions of years in an environment that is unchanging yet unforgiving. Many animals have soft, common residents include deep-sea holtherins, Sea cucumbers that creep across the sediment, ingesting it to extract nutrients. Brittle stars waving their arms into the current to capture drifting particles. Amphipods scavenging in packs and giant isopods lumbering across the mud. Abyssal grenadiers patrol the plains with slow, energy-efficient movements while tripod fish balance on their extended fin rays facing into the current to catch passing food. Survival here requires extreme specializations honed over millions of years in an environment that is unchanging yet unforgiving. Many animals have soft, compressible bodies without rigid bones or gas-filled swim bladders, avoiding the risk of collapse under immense pressure that would crush air-filled cavities instantly. Their tissues are often permeated with fats and gelatinous materials that match the density of seawater, allowing for neutral buoyancy without expending energy. Special cell membrane structures and pressure-tolerant enzymes keep biological processes functioning in conditions that would render shallow water proteins useless. Antifreeze like glyoproteins and other cryoprotectants in their blood and tissues prevent ice crystal formation, maintaining fluidity at near-freezing temperatures. Senses are tuned with exquisite precision to detect life in the dark. Long, delicate antennae, whisker-like barbels, and lateral line systems pick up faint vibrations in the water. Specialized chemoreceptors detect chemical trails lingering from prey or carrying. As the present, are adapted either to gather the faintest glow of bioluminescence or in some cases reduced entirely to conserve energy with other senses taking precedence. Predators often rely on patience and stealth, waiting motionless for prey to drift close enough for a sudden strike. Conserving every calorie. Energy conservation is paramount. Metabolisms are among the slowest in the animal kingdom. Movements are deliberate and feeding is opportunistic. Reproductive strategies favor survival over quantity, with many species producing fewer but larger eggs, often yolk-rich, giving rise to well-developed young capable of fending for themselves in the sparse abyssal environment. The abyssopelagic zone is a major carbon sink, functioning as one of the planet's long-term storage vaults for organic carbon. Organic matter that reaches this depth, from microscopic plankton remains to the carcasses of large marine animals, often becomes buried in fine sediments where low temperatures and high pressures slow microbial breakdown. In some cases, this material may remain locked away for tens of thousands, even millions of years, helping to regulate atmospheric carbon dioxide levels and influence Earth's climate system over geological timescales. This depth also acts as a vast chemical reactor. Through slow decomposition and remineralization, plays a vital role in nutrient cycling, gradually releasing nitrogen, phosphorus, and trace elements back into circulation via deep ocean currents. These nutrients can eventually upwell to the surface, fertilizing productive coastal and open ocean ecosystems far from the abyss itself. Though remote, the abyss faces growing threats, many of which are only just beginning to be understood. Deep-sea mining for polymetallic nodules, rich in manganese, cobalt, nickel, and other metals critical for modern technology, threatens to scrape and destabilize vast sections of abyssal plains, destroying fragile habitats and the slow-growing organisms that inhabit them. These nodules can take millions of years to form, meaning recovery timescales for such ecosystems could be geological rather than human. The noise, sediment plumes, and potential chemical leaching from mining operations may also disrupt the delicate feeding and reproductive cycles of deep-sea species. Pollutants from the surface, including microplastics, persistent organic pollutants, and heavy metals, are carried here by global currents, accumulating in sediments, and even entering the tissues of abyssal organisms. Climate change adds another layer of stress by altering surface productivity, the source of most abyssal food, and potentially shifting deep ocean circulation patterns. Less organic material arriving from above could starve these ecosystems, while changes in temperature and chemistry may challenge even the highly specialized life that calls the abyss home. Below 6,000 m, the seafloor plunges into narrow canyons and deep trenches, the Hadal pelagic zone, where conditions become even more extreme. But here in the abyss, life moves slowly, methodically, and persistently, embodying endurance in its purest form. It is a place where time stretches, change is slow, and evolution has crafted creatures that thrive in silence and darkness. The Hadal pelagic zone. Beneath 6,000 m, around 20,000 feet, the seafloor plunges into the deepest parts of the ocean. The trenches, troughs, and deep depressions that make up the Hadal pelagic zone. Named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld, this realm is our planet's most extreme aquatic frontier, although it accounts for less than 2% of the ocean's area. Contains some of Earth's most dramatic and mysterious landscapes, including the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, the deepest known point at nearly 11,000 m, 36,000 feet. Unlike the other oceanic zones, the Hadal pelagic is not a continuous blanket covering the seafloor. Instead, it is a fragmented mosaic of more than 30 known trenches and a scattering of deep oceanic troughs scattered across the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans, with the Pacific hosting the majority due to its many active subduction zones. These geological marvels are mostly born from subduction zones where one tectonic plate slides beneath another, forcing the crust downward into narrow crescent-shaped scars in the seafloor. Some, like the Mariana Trench near Guam, are over 500 kilometers long, 580 miles, yet only about 70 kilometers wide, 43 miles, with walls that plunge steeply into darkness. Others include the Tonga Trench, the Kurtk Trench, the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, and the Philippine Trench, each with its own geological character and endemic life. The terrain is rugged and dynamic. Sediment-laden valleys and cliffs alternate with rocky outcrops, fault scarps, and sheer trench walls. Earthquakes can trigger landslides that send clouds of sediment cascading into the depths, while turbidity currents, underwater avalanches of sand and silt roar through trench valleys at surprising speeds, reshaping the landscape and redistributing nutrients. The steep slopes, sediment fans, and isolated pockets of flat seafloor create a variety of microhabitats, influencing where and how life thrives in these isolated deep water realms. Here, the pressure exceeds 100 times that at sea level, the equivalent of the weight of an elephant balanced on a postage stamp. Temperatures hover just above freezing and sunlight never penetrates. The darkness is absolute, relieved only by the occasional spark of bioluminescence or faint glimmers from chemosynthetic microbial mats. Surprisingly, life flourishes, though it is highly specialized and often endemic to individual trenches. Microbes dominate the base of the food chain. Many of these extremophiles possess unique genetic adaptations that allow enzymes and cell structures to function at extreme pressures, offering tantalizing clues for biotechnology. Larger residents include amphipods the size of small lobsters, snail fish with translucent gelatinous bodies, and minimal skeletal material, giant isopods, sea cucumbers, and deep-sea polyet worms. These creatures rely on flexible cell membranes rich in unsaturated fats, high concentrations of pressure-stabilizing molecules like trimethylamine N-oxide TMAO, and specialized proteins to prevent structural collapse. Some species here are remarkable for their evolutionary isolation, like the Marana snailfish, which can live deeper than any other known fish over 8,000 m down. Its body is soft and pliable with no air-filled spaces, and its muscles and enzymes are uniquely tuned to work under crushing force. The Hadal zone depends largely on falling organic matter. Marine snow, Plankton remains, and the occasional carcasses from above. But the geography of these trenches creates a unique feeding advantage. The steep trench walls act like giant funnels and catchment basins, channeling debris down slope into the narrow valleys at the bottom. This means that certain spots within a trench can receive a concentrated supply of nutrients compared to the more evenly spread but thinner rain of particles over the flat abyssal plains. This organic input fuels a food web of scavengers, deposit feeders, and microbial decomposers, each adapted to make the most of every fragment of energy that arrives. Some hadal habitats benefit from chemosynthesis near tectonically active areas or zones where chemical-rich fluids seep from the seabed. Here, bacteria and archaea oxidize chemicals like hydrogen sulfide or methane, often sourced from geological processes tied to subduction to produce organic matter without sunlight. These microbial mats form dense filamentous carpets that provide grazing grounds for amphipods, limpets, and other invertebrates. Filter-feeding organisms take advantage of both drifting organic matter and free-living microbes in the water column, adding further diversity to these communities. In such locations, life is sustained by Earth's internal chemistry rather than its star, creating true oases in an otherwise nutrient-poor realm. Studying the hadal pelagic zone is akin to exploring another planet. The conditions here are similar to those suspected on the subsurface oceans of icy moons such as Europa and Enceladus, making it a natural laboratory for astrobiology. The unique adaptations found here could lead to breakthroughs in materials science, enzyme technology, and medicine. Sediments in the trenches also act as repositories of Earth's geological and biological history, capturing layers of material that may preserve ancient DNA, pollen, volcanic ash, and even microlastics, offering scientists a time machine into both natural and human-driven change. While the hadal zone's remoteness has shielded it from many human impacts, it is not untouched. Plastic waste, synthetic fibers, and chemical pollutants have been found in amphipods collected from the Marana Trench and other deep sites, proving that no part of the ocean is beyond the reach of surface pollution. Climate change may alter the productivity of upper layers, reducing food supply and potentially affecting the delicate food webs here. Exploration of the hadal-pelagic zone is technologically challenging due to the extreme pressures, cold temperatures, and remoteness of these environments. Only a handful of crude submersibles such as the Biscoff Trieste in 1960, James Cameron's Deep Sea Challenger in 2012, and Victor Vizzo's DSV limiting factor during multiple dives from 2019 onward have reached the Challenger deep. These missions provided direct observations, high-definition imagery, and invaluable environmental measurements, proving that life thrives even at the ocean's deepest points. In addition to crewed dives, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and autonomous landers have greatly expanded our reach. ROVs can spend hours or days at depth capturing footage of elusive life, mapping trench topography in detail, and collecting sediment, water, and biological samples for laboratory analysis. Some landers abetted to attract scavengers, allowing scientists to study feeding behaviors and species diversity. Long-term deep-sea observatories and instrumented moorings have also been deployed in certain trenches to monitor temperature, pressure, seismic activity, and biological processes over time. Despite these advancements, we have still explored only a fraction of the hadal environment, and each mission often reveals species, behaviors, or geological features never before documented, underscoring how much remains to be discovered. The hadal-pelagic zone remains Earth's least explored biome, a realm of crushing weight, cold, and isolation, but also of resilience, adaptation, and evolutionary ingenuity. It is proof that life can persist in conditions that defy human endurance, thriving not with the warmth of sunlight, but with the quiet determination of organisms perfectly tuned to the deepest dark. Have you ever dreamt of being a superhero? Which power would you go for? Immortality, super strength, the ability to regenerate lost limbs, to punch through steel, to hover in midair, to shock your enemies with a pulse of electricity, to sleep with half your brain still awake. Well, my dear dreamer, what if I told you all of those powers already exist? Not in comic books, not in science fiction movies, but here on Earth, right now. Nature has already written the origin stories. Tiny jellyfish that reset their life cycles. Underwater boxes that shatter shells with the speed of a bullet. Feathered jewels that fly backwards, upside down, and never forget a face. Frogs that sprout claws from broken bones like Wolverine. Creatures that never grow old. And beings so strange they see the world in colors we can't even imagine. Our planet is teeming with real superheroes. Camouflaged in forests. Drifting through oceans. Clinging to glass tanks. Or sleeping in trees. Quietly flexing powers that break every rule we thought we understood. And now, as you settle in for the night, I'm going to take you to meet them one by one. So, close your eyes. Breathe. Let the world fade away. You're about to step into a quieter universe full of marvels where science is magic and evolution is the wildest storyteller of all. Let me show you what's possible. Axolotl, the regenerating wonder of the water. Imagine this. You accidentally cut off your finger and instead of a trip to the emergency room, you watch in awe as it grows back. Bone, skin, nail, everything, just like new. Sounds like science fiction, right? Well, for one remarkable creature, it's just another Tuesday. Tonight we're diving into the world of the axolotl, a creature that defies the rules of biology and captivates the imagination. The axolotl ambestoxicum is one of nature's most enchanting oddballs. It's a salamander sure, but unlike most of its cousins, it never grows up. It matures into a reproductive adult while still looking like a larva. This phenomenon is called neoteny, and it's the reason the axolotl keeps its fluffy external gills and aquatic lifestyle its whole life. No awkward teenage transition to a land-dwelling salamander here. Just baby-faced glory forever. While neoteny is rare, the axolotl isn't completely alone. Some tiger salamanders and mud puppies pull similar stunts. But the axolotl is the poster child for this lifestyle. Originally, these creatures thrived in a network of high-altitude lakes in central Mexico, including Lake Texaco, Lake Zoquilo, and Lake Chalco, back in Aztec times. They were so abundant they were eaten regularly and sold in markets. But after the Spanish drained much of this lake system, most of their habitat vanished. What's left is an urban sprawl, Ca Mexico City, where canals of Lake Sacamilo are the last scraps of axolotl real estate. Pollution, habitat destruction, and invasive species like tilapia and perch have left wild axolotls on the brink of extinction with only a few dozen to 1,000 estimated survivors. In captivity, though, they're thriving. Labs around the world adore axolotls for their mind-blowing regenerative abilities. Need a new leg? Done. Lost part of your heart? No problem. Spinal cord. Brain tissue. Even an eye? Yep. Axolotls can regrow all that. They're also lab-friendly and make quirky, low-maintenance pets as long as you don't screw up the water temperature. Adult axolotls are usually 15 to 45 centimeters long, 6 to 18 in, though most fall near the 23 centimeters mark. 9 in. They have broad heads, lidless eyes, underdeveloped limbs with thin fingers, and those signature 3 pairs of frilly gills that stick out like underwater feathers. They also keep a tail fin and have gill slits lined with rakers to help filter food to breathe. Axolotls mainly rely on those external gills. But they've got lungs, too. and when necessary, they'll gulp air from the surface in a motion called buccal pumping, using suction to pull oxygen into their lungs. Their feeding style is equally dramatic. They open their mouths suddenly to create a vacuum that slurps up worms, insects, and small fish. In the wild, axolotls are typically a speckled brown or olive color, and they can slightly change shade for camouflage. But thanks to captive breeding and mutations in their 4 pigment genes, pet axolotls come in a rainbow of morphs. Leucistic, pale pink with black eyes, the classic pet look. Xanthic, grayish-yellow with black eyes. Albino, white or pink with red eyes. Melanistic, all black or dark blue. Piebald, black and white spotted. Breeding has produced wild color combos and double mutant morphs, especially in the pet trade. In 2018, researchers published the axolotl's full genome, 32 billion base pairs. It was the largest sequenced animal genome at the time, about 10 times the size of ours. That bulk comes not from more genes. They've got about 23,000 similar to us, but from loads of repetitive elements and massive introns. Long stretches of DNA between genes. What makes the axolotl a regenerative rock star? First, it doesn't scar. Instead, when it loses a limb or other body part, it forms a blast, a mound of undifferentiated cells that know how to regrow exactly what's missing. Nerves, skin, muscle, blood vessels, all regenerate in perfect order. They've also been known to regenerate organs like eyes and hearts, and in some cases even parts of the brain. Plus, they can accept organ and tissue transplants from other axolotls like new limbs or eyeballs and restore full function. Occasionally, one limb regenerates and another grows by accident, creating 5-legged curiosities beloved by pet owners. This magic fades a bit with age and almost disappears in axolotls that undergo forced metamorphosis. But it's still extraordinary and the subject of intense medical research. Scientists think the axolotl's immune system and special inflammation control may play key roles. Unlike other amphibians that grow out of their gills and move to dry land, axolotls don't make enough thyroid-stimulating hormone TSH to trigger metamorphosis. That's why they stay in their aquatic gilled form. You can artificially induce metamorphosis with hormone injections like thyroxine, and the result looks like a small tiger salamander. But it's risky. Many die during or after the process. In labs and nature, neoteny is often a survival adaptation in iodine-poor environments where staying larval gives better odds. Today, wild axolotls only live in parts of Lake Xochilco, which is more a canal network than a true lake. Surveys from 1998 to 2008 showed their numbers dropping from 6,000 to 100 per square kilometer. A 2013 search found none until a pair showed up in a canal system a month later. Threats abound. Poor water quality, pollution from agriculture and aquaculture, and nasty invasive fish that eat axolotl eggs or out-compete them for food. Pesticides further hurt embryos and young, causing deformities and high mortality rates. Inbreeding is another concern. With a tiny population, genetic diversity has plummeted. Bottleneck events, big die-offs, lead to high relatedness, low fitness, and a rough path forward. There's even been DNA mixing with tiger salamanders in captivity, raising concerns for conservation purity. Despite the grim outlook, there's hope. Programs like UNAM's Laboratorio de Restauración have bred hundreds of axolotls for research and potential reintroduction. Some semi-wild test populations have survived and reproduced in new wetlands. A 2025 study showed that released axolotls gained weight in the wild, though many fell victim to predators like egrets. Still, it's a start. The axolotl arrived in France in the 1860s, where scientists began discovering its regenerative powers and how to induce metamorphosis. Since then, It's been a staple of research labs used to study everything from heart defects to nervous system development to pigmentation. Its embryos are large and easy to study, making axolotls an ideal model for developmental biology. They're also oddly relatable with their little smiles, frilly gills, and penchant for ignoring the rules of aging. They've made their way into video games, memes, plush toys, and national bank notes. And as pet ownership grows, so does the public's affection for these weird, wonderful water dragons. Thinking of adopting one? You'll need a spacious, cool tank, about 150 L per axolotl. Temperatures should stay between 16 to 18 degrees Celsius, 61 to 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Go higher than 24 degrees Celsius, 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're flirting with stress and death. Avoid gravel or small substrates. They can cause fatal impactions if swallowed. Smooth, fine sand is best. And yes, they will try to eat anything the size of their head. Feed them worms, bloodworms, or special pellets. Avoid feeder fish as they often carry parasites. Tap water must be dechlorinated, and some people add hotras salts to prevent infections. Don't try to force metamorphosis. It's dangerous and unnecessary. The axolotl is more than a biological curiosity. It's a scientific ally, a cultural icon, and a reminder of the strange, beautiful solutions evolution can produce. In its watery world beneath Mexico City, this eternal lava lives on. Sleep well, dear dreamer. May Axolotl join you in your dreams tonight with his adorable little face and true superhero powers. Mantis shrimp, the punch, the prism, and the perfection of nature's wildest warrior. Welcome to the reef. Warm water, blinding sunlight, a chaos of color and movement and sound. Fish dart, corals bloom, anemones sway. But deep within this ecosystem of vibrant elegance lives a creature that makes everything else look ordinary. It is a predator, a fighter, a designer of tunnels, and a decoder of light. It is the mantis shrimp. Tonight we swim side by side with this surrealist nightmare of a crustacean. Half myth, half muscle, and wholly magnificent. Let's be clear up front. Despite its name, the mantis shrimp is neither mantis nor shrimp. It is a st tomatopod, an ancient offshoot of the crustacean lineage that's been evolving independently for over 400 million years. Older than dinosaurs, older than trees, and yet somehow it still looks like it came out of a sci-fi fever dream. There are over 400 known species of mantis shrimp. Some are drab, some are camouflaged, but others are painted like marine supermodels. Take the peacock mantis shrimp, Odontodactyl lucerus, electric blue legs, lime green carapace, orange antennae, polka dot eyes. If the reef were a party, the mantis shrimp would be the one kicking in the door in a sequin tux. But you don't mess with it because under that dazzling exterior lies a pair of clubs. Real literal clubs capable of punching through crab shells, aquarium glass, and your expectations. Let's talk mechanics. The mantis shrimp's weapon of choice is a raptorial appendage. A specialized limb folded beneath its body like a switchblade. Comes in two main flavors: spearers with barbed tips for impaling soft prey, and smashers with blunt clubs designed to pulverize. Our peacock mantis shrimp a smasher, and it's got the fastest punch in the animal kingdom. How fast? Try 23 meters per second. Roughly the speed of a .22 caliber bullet. That's over 50 miles per hour underwater. The acceleration is about 10,000 times the force of gravity. This isn't just brute strength. It's physics. Hidden inside each limb is a latch and lever system, kind of like a biological crossbow. The mantis shrimp contracts its muscles slowly, storing up energy in spring-like structures made of a protein called resilin. Then with a twitch, it releases the latch and bam. Instant impact. Bone-breaking power. All in the blink of an eye. But wait. It gets weirder. The force of the strike is so extreme it creates cavitation bubbles. Microscopic voids in the water that collapse with a flash of heat and sound. When these bubbles implode, they release a second shock wave strong enough to kill prey. Even if the first strike missed, this crustacean doesn't just punch its enemies. It hits them with explosions. You might think that was enough. Incredible punch. Ancient lineage. All that jazz. But we haven't even gotten to the eyes yet. The mantis shrimp has arguably the most complex visual system of any known animal. Each of its stalked eyes can move independently and contains 3 separate parts for focusing and tracking. That's like having 3 eyes in one socket. 6 total. All capable of triangulating distance, reading detail, and analyzing motion. But the real showstopper, color vision. Humans have 3 types of photoreceptor cones: red, green, blue. Some birds and butterflies have 4 or 5. The mantis shrimp has up to 16. 16. Can see ultraviolet. Can see infrared. Can detect polarized light. Both linearly and circularly polarized. To put that in perspective, humans can't see polarized light at all without sunglasses. The mantis shrimp doesn't need accessories. It sees light as texture, angle, depth. Where we see blue, it sees nuance, layers of detail woven in color we can't imagine. It's been called a living spectrometer. Scientists still don't fully understand how it processes what it sees. Some studies suggest it doesn't even compare colors like we do. It just recognizes them instantly like a barcode scanner. And it uses this hypervision not just to hunt but to communicate. Mantis shrimps are territorial, combative, solitary, but they're not silent. Their bodies are painted with ultraviolet patterns, polarized markings, and subtle color cues invisible to predators and competitors alike. Think of it as covert messaging. Neon graffiti sprayed in a language only fellow mantis shrimp can read. Researchers believe these signals are used to identify sex, size, species, and mood. In territorial disputes, mantis shrimp often perform ritualized dances, merrill spreads, flaring their limbs and displaying their colors in an attempt to bluff or intimidate. Why fight when you can psych your opponent out with nothing but flair? But when the bluff doesn't work, the clubs come out. Mantis shrimps are not just warriors. They are builders, craftsmen, homebodies with a taste for solitude and an eye for real estate. They carve burrows into sand and coral, sometimes meters deep. These homes are more than dens. They're bunkers, bedrooms, ambush sites, and fortresses. Some species engineer elaborate tunnel systems with multiple exits optimized for escape or sudden attack. Inside they rest, clean stash food, occasionally raise young. When threatened, they retreat and defend the doorway with their fists of fury. They live long lives, up to 20 years in some species. And when they settle down, they don't roam. They become legends of their neighborhood, known by scent and presence alone. So what's going on in that carapaced head? Surprisingly, a lot. Mantis shrimps have large brains for their size. They're capable of learning, recognizing individuals, and solving problems. In lab tests, they navigate mazes, remember symbols, and respond to conditioning. In the wild, they outsmart prey, predict patterns, and exhibit tool use. One individual at a marine research center learned to recognize specific researchers, reacting differently to each depending on who fed them and who tried to run tests. They also display memory, curiosity, and dare we say, attitude. You don't get to be the ocean's deadliest puncher without a little swagger. Scientists, as it turns out, are obsessed with the mantis shrimp. Its striking appendage has inspired material science, specifically in the design of ultra-strong armor. Engineers are mimicking the layered shock-absorbing structure of its club to create impact-resistant plastics, vehicle armor, and aerospace materials. Its vision system is influencing optical sensors, satellite imaging, and cancer detection tech. Its muscle spring mechanics are being studied for robotic limbs and high-speed devices. A tiny reef dweller barely 6 in long, shaping the future of technology. That's a resume. Despite its gifts, the mantis shrimp is still part of the ocean's brutal food web. Eats crabs, mollusks, worms, and small fish, smashing their shells with precise, preemptive strikes. But it's also hunted. Groupers, eels, bigger fish, occasionally humans. Diverse sometimes call it thumb splitter for its ability to break fingers. Aquarists have seen them shatter aquarium glass with a single blow. Even in captivity, they are escape artists known to climb tubes, hide for days, and ambush tank mates with sudden death from the shadows. Beautiful, yes, but not to be trifled with. Picture it now. A crevice in a reef. A flicker of movement. Nothing. Then something. A flash of neon. A glint of blue. A ripple of tension in the water. The mantis shrimp emerges. Clubs cocked. Eyes twitching in 6 directions at once. It scans. It assesses. It pulses with color visible only to a chosen few. Then it retreats, vanishing like a thought before a punch. Gone. But never far. This isn't just a creature. It's a cipher. A marvel. A riddle solved by survival. Forged in the crucible of evolution's strangest dreams. And so we end tonight's story not with a whisper, but with a smash. The mantis shrimp is many things. Killer. An artist. A builder. A seer. It shatters shells. Invents color. Rewrites physics. And may very well punch its way into the future of human science. But what makes it extraordinary isn't just its power. It's that this kind of power is possible at all in something so small, so hidden, so absurdly, beautifully designed. As you drift to sleep, know this. Somewhere in the coral reefs, a creature exists that sees more than we can imagine and strikes faster than we can follow. It doesn't roar. It doesn't fly. But it does one thing better than any animal alive. Punches with purpose and it never misses. Sleep well, dear dreamer. And don't worry. You're in good hands tonight. Hydra, the creature that forgot how to die. Picture this. A single thread of life barely visible in the quiet shallows of a freshwater pond. No bones. No blood. No heart. No aging. A creature so unassuming you'd miss it entirely. Unless you looked with wonder. We drift into the still waters where the hydra lives. A tiny polyp that could sit comfortably on the tip of a pin and yet hold secrets that could shake the very foundations of biology. It doesn't age. It doesn't die. Not from time anyway. And when it's torn apart, it doesn't mourn. It regrows, reassembles, begins again. What we're talking about is not immortality in the mythological sense. It's something quieter, stranger, a biological loophole in the contract every living thing has with time. And tonight, we're going to explore it. Back in the 1740s, a Swiss naturalist named Abraham Tremblay made a discovery that stunned the world. Not with its scale, but with its implications. He was observing a tiny creature, tentacled and translucent, living in a jar of pond water. Curious, he took a knife and sliced it in two. But the hydra didn't die. Instead, each half became whole. Each fragment grew new tentacles, new mouths, a new creature identical to the original. This wasn't healing. This wasn't recovery. This was full-body regeneration. Over and over again. Tremblay cut the creature vertically, horizontally, diagonally, and each time it made a comeback. A miracle maybe, but a very real one. And it wasn't a fluke. Scientists today still study Hydra for the same reason. Because this tiny tentacled organism defies the rules of life and death. So what is a Hydra? It's a genus of small freshwater animals in the film Cnidaria. The same family as jellyfish, sea anemones, and coral. But while its cousins sting and dazzle in marine waters, the Hydra lives in ponds, lakes, and streams attached to underwater plants or debris, drifting gently in the current. Its body is a simple tube just a few mm long. At one end, a crown of tentacles surrounding a central mouth. At the other, a sticky foot called a basal disc used to cling to surfaces or inch slowly along like an upside-down caterpillar. It has no brain but a nerve net. No heart but pulsating movement. No eyes but sensitivity to light and touch. And it reproduces both sexually and asexually, budding off clones like an overachieving garden. But beneath that simplicity is a system that stuns scientists to this day. The secret lies in its cells. Hydra are loaded, absolutely packed with stem cells. These are undifferentiated cells that can become anything. Muscle, nerve, skin. In humans, we have stem cells, too. But their activity fades as we age. Hydras, always on, always dividing, always ready. In fact, most of a Hydra's body is made of interstitial stem cells. Self-renewing, fast-dividing miracle cells that constantly replenish its tissues. You know how you and I slowly accumulate damage over time. Cell mutations, protein buildup, DNA breaks. We age. Hydra doesn't. It just keeps rebuilding constantly, continuously, flawlessly. Cut off its head. It grows another. Split it down the middle. 2 Hydras. Crush it into fragments. Every piece may regrow into a full individual. Scientists have taken single cells from Hydras and cultured them until they rebuilt entire organisms. This isn't just healing. This is resetting. But here's where it gets truly weird. Under normal conditions, Hydra show no signs of aging. None. A 1998 study kept a population of Hydra valgaris alive for 4 years without any decline in health, fertility, or regeneration. Another team extended it to 10 years. Still nothing. No senescence. No slowing down. No molecular decay. Some estimates suggest that barring accidents, Hydra could theoretically live forever. That's right. Biological immortality. Let's be clear. They're not invincible. Predators, pollution, starvation, these still kill. But Hydra don't die from time. There is no biological endpoint. No built-in aging mechanism. They do not grow old. They simply persist. That's why Hydra are a model organism for aging research. Because if we can figure out why they don't age, maybe, just maybe, we can learn how to slow or even reverse the process in ourselves. Regenerative medicine is already experimenting with stem cell to heal injuries, regrow tissues, even reset age markers in cells. But what if we understood the Hydra well enough to mimic its continuous regeneration? That's the dream. Scientists are studying the molecular pathways Hydra uses to maintain its stem cells. Notably the FOXO gene, which plays a key role in cell survival and lifespan regulation. Hydra have exceptionally active FOXO genes in humans. FXO activity declines with age, but boosting it has been linked to longer lifespans and improved resistance to oxidative stress. Hydra don't need a boost. Their FOXO is always humming. They're also studying how Hydra avoid cancer because high stem cell turnover usually leads to mutations. But Hydra's DNA repair mechanisms seem hyper-efficient, preventing runaway cell growth. Imagine regenerating lost limbs. replacing damaged organs, resetting aging cells. The Hydra does all this with no lab, no machines, no drama, just biology humming quietly at the bottom of a pond. Hydra's regeneration is spectacular. But there's more. It reproduces in two ways: by breeding, asexual, and by spawning eggs and sperm, sexual. In favorable conditions, it clones itself every few days. Under stress, it reproduces sexually to create hardier offspring. It can rearrange its body plan. Scientists have even turned hydras inside out and watched them reorganize themselves, forming new tissue layers as needed. They can survive freezing, desiccation, and starvation by going dormant. They can change shape to fit environments, elongate to catch prey, or collapse into a blob to avoid damage. And then there's their nervous system. While primitive, is surprisingly robust. Hydra show learning-like behaviors, adapting reflexes after repeated exposure to stimuli. They coordinate tentacle movement. They respond to touch, light, and chemical gradients. It's not a brain, but it's not dumb. For all their brilliance, Hydra are still fragile. They live in clean, oxygen-rich waters. Polluted ponds kill them. Acidic runoff dissolves them. Climate change, chemical fertilizers, and habitat destruction are making their microhabitats disappear. They're not endangered yet, but they are vulnerable. And while they don't age, they're not immune to extinction. So, scientists are racing to study them, not just for what they can teach us about longevity, but because their existence reminds us. Sometimes the most powerful lives are the smallest. Sometimes immortality hides in the weeds. Tonight, as you drift off to sleep, picture the Hydra floating. Still tentacles spread. No heartbeat. No thoughts. Just a cellular symphony playing quietly. Endlessly. Time passes. The sun rises. The pond warms. The Hydra doesn't change. It has no ambitions. No regrets, no bucket list, and yet, in its quiet persistence, it achieves something most of us dream of. Not power, not fame, but forever. It reminds us that life doesn't have to be grand to be magical. That sometimes simplicity is a superpower. That the secrets of regeneration, healing, and time itself may be hiding not in the stars but in a drop of water. Electric eel. The battery that bites back. Imagine a fish. Not just any fish, but one that lives in muddy rivers, sees with electricity, and can knock you flat with a jolt stronger than a taser. A fish that could, if sufficiently annoyed, power a few hundred LED light bulbs or ruin your day in the most shocking way possible. Meet the electric eel. It doesn't wear a cape. It doesn't have laser eyes. But when it flexes its muscles, oh honey, sparks fly. You're in the heart of South America. The air is thick. You're standing by the edge of a swampy river, watching the water move slowly, dark and sluggish like brewed coffee. Somewhere beneath that surface, the superhero of our story is lurking. You won't see it coming. You might not even feel it before it happens. But your muscles will. The electric eel, Electrophorus electricus, has long fascinated and terrified in equal measure. It's not a true eel. Let's clear that up first. It's a knife fish, part of the order Gymnot, forms more closely related to a catfish than a conga. But electric knife fish doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. So, we stuck with eel. Scientists are sentimental like that. This animal is the Tesla of the river, but with fewer crashes and more personality. It can generate a burst of electricity up to 860 volts. That's almost 4 times the voltage of your average US wall socket. This is not the kind of fish you want nibbling your toes. So, how does it work? The eel's body is essentially one long slimy power station. About 80% of its body is made up of electric organs. 3 of them, in fact. The main organ, Hunter's organ, and Sachs's organ. Inside each are thousands of specialized cells called electrolytes aligned like battery cells in a series. When the eel wants to send out a zap, it sends a signal from its brain that opens ion channels in these cells. Sodium and potassium rush in, flipping the voltage of each cell. And when you do that across thousands of them simultaneously, you get a surge strong enough to stun a fish, frighten a horse, or reportedly kill a human. Though, let's be clear, that would be rare and probably require really bad luck. Sachs's organ produces weak electric fields for navigation and communication. It's the eel's radar in the dark. Muddy waters of the Amazon, main and Hunter organs, on the other hand, are used for the heavy artillery. When hunting, the eel will sometimes emit high-frequency volleys of electric pulses to immobilize prey. It's like tasering your dinner. These aren't just brute force attacks, either. Studies have shown the eel can vary the intensity and pattern of its discharges, can deliver a single jolt, a burst of short pulses to track a moving target, or a long sustained shock to overwhelm a threat. It's the Swiss Army knife of zapping. Let's paint the scene. A small fish swims too close. The electric eel lies in wait, blending into the murky substrate. It senses the electrical field disturbance made by the fish's own tiny heartbeat. Then wham! A quick double pulse. The fish's muscles twitch uncontrollably. It's not dead, but it's frozen. This is the eel's version of a sneak attack. It lunges forward, swallows the stunned fish whole, and retreats, leaving nothing but a puff of sediment and a very confused ecosystem. And here's the fun part. The eel's weapon is also its vision. In the dark, it emits low-level pulses constantly, reading the feedback to map its world. When something disturbs the field, say a frog paddling by, it detects that, too. Think echolocation but with vaults. And then there's the leap. Yes, leap. In a particularly dramatic defense move, the eel will actually rise out of the water and press its chin against a potential predator or threat, be it a caiman or an unlucky researcher, and release a full jolt. Why? Because the electricity travels better when there's a height difference. The eel basically uses your body as a live wire. Still think fish are boring. Let's talk romance. During the dry season, when waters recede and pools shrink, male eels build nests out of saliva. Yes, you heard that right. Spit. These mucus masterpieces cradle hundreds, sometimes thousands of eggs. Females lay the eggs and males guard them like proud, slimy babysitters. And then the babies hatch, wriggle off into the murk, and the cycle continues. Electric eels don't form pair bonds. There are no anniversary cards or riverbed roses. But for a moment, there's cooperation, protection, and a gooey fish nursery that works well enough to keep the species going. Electric eels can grow up to 2.5 m, over 8 feet, and weigh around 20 kilograms, 44 pounds, long, sinuous, and muscular. They're built for gliding. No pelvic fins, no fancy appendages. Just one long anal fin running down the underside, allowing elegant undulation and tight navigation through thick vegetation. They breathe air. That's right. Despite living in water, they're obligate air breathers, surfacing every 10 minutes or so. Their gills aren't up to the task alone. An evolutionary nudge from their low oxygen environment. And those electric organs. They make up most of the body mass with internal batteries dominating the eel's real estate like a Tesla showroom. What could possibly go wrong? Habitat loss. Mostly. The Amazon and Orinoco basins are under pressure from deforestation, pollution, agriculture, and dams. The eel isn't critically endangered yet, But like many freshwater species, it's vulnerable to changes in water quality and hydrology. Add to that the complications of climate change. And even a biological marvel like the electric eel finds itself treading water in a warming world. From the moment they were discovered, electric eels captivated scientists. In the 1700s, European researchers brought them back to study this bizarre fish with a lightning touch. Andrew Var's invention of the battery was in part inspired by studies of electric fish. Today, we study electric eels to learn about bioelectricity, neurology, and even energy storage. Researchers are exploring how bio-inspired technologies might use the EEL's ElectroE model to develop flexible, non-toxic power sources. And they've got a fan club. From comic books and cartoons to shockingly bad video game villains, the electric eel is iconic. It's in museums, zoos, classrooms, and it's watching you from behind those lidless, judgmental eyes, wondering if you're brave enough to put your hand in the tank. What makes the electric eel so compelling isn't just its power. It's that this animal embodies a kind of evolutionary finesse, an elegant biological solution to life in a dark, dirty, dangerous place. It uses electricity like we use light, speech, and force all wrapped up in one sleek swimming package. So, next time someone tells you fish are dull, ask them if their goldfish can power a light bulb, hunt by remote muscle control, or win a Darwinian slap fight. Sleep well, dear dreamer. May your dreams be filled with electric eels. Or rather not. A creature silently shocking, unapologetically weird, and definitely not a creature you want to meet barefoot in the Amazon. But don't be afraid and let it spark your dreams tonight. The hairy frog, aka the Wolverine frog. Close your eyes and imagine this. You're cornered in a jungle, face to face with a creature that's less ribbit and more rage. It looks harmless enough. Chunky, greenish, maybe even a little fluffy if you squint at its fuzzy thighs. And then, in a move that would make any Marvel fan scream, it snaps its own bones, bursts its claws through its skin, and lunges. Congratulations. You've just met Trichobatrachus robustus, the hairy frog. Or, if you're into comic book metaphors, the Wolverine frog. Yes, it's real. Yes, it breaks its own bones to stab things. And yes, we're about to go deep into the rainforest shadows to meet this little chaos gremlin and uncover why evolution decided what this frog needs as weapons. Let's set the stage. Central Africa. Think Cameroon. The Congo Basin. Gabon. Steamy forests. Twisting rivers. Things chirp at night that shouldn't chirp. And somewhere under a rock by a stream, a small amphibian with surprisingly meaty legs lies in wait. From the outside, the hairy frog isn't exactly a showstopper. It's squat with a wide, blunt face and bug-eyed expression. During mating season, the males sprout keratin-like pill, soft bristly filaments down their flanks and thighs. It looks like fur, but it's really just extra skin grown for oxygen absorption. Like gill mohawks, it gives them a bizarre punk rock meets Yeti aesthetic. But underneath this prickly frog facade is a body built for battle. Hidden beneath its toes are small bones with sharp ends. Unlike some unholy origami, the frog can fold these bones, snap them loose, and push them through its own flesh like claws. Painful. Definitely practical. Apparently, because in the wild, when everything is trying to eat you, self-inflicted weaponry might just buy you another day. Let's break down how the claws work. Most animals evolve weapons. Horns, teeth, spikes by growing them. But the hairy frog is on another level of commitment. It carries pre-sharpened bones inside its feet. When danger strikes, it flexes a specialized muscle that yanks the bony tips down and out. These bones rupture through the skin. No sheets. No glove compartments. Just flesh-ripping emergency-ready bone shards. They're not made of keratin like cat claws or human nails. These are straight-up skeletal elements. Built-in shanks for street fights. And when the danger passes? Good question. Scientists believe the claws retract back inside the toe pad and the tissue slowly heals. No one's really sure how often a frog can pull off this move before it causes permanent damage. But nature doesn't make perfect things. Just things that work. However ridiculous they might seem. If you're picturing a frog slashing like an X-Men character and hopping off into the trees. Pause. These guys are terrestrial but not agile gymnasts. They're ambush predators. Mostly muscle. Mostly attitude. They're not running from danger. They're facing it bones first. In the rainy season, when thunder rolls and rivers swell, the hairy frogs emerge from their rocky layers for one of nature's weirdest romantic dramas. The males, now fully hairy with their skin filaments, call out in short, guttural croaks, not the smooth bass of a bullfrog or the tinkling chorus of tree frogs. More of a growling bark. A sound that says, I will guard these eggs with my life and possibly stab you. And guard them they do. After mating, the female lays her eggs in shallow water or along the stream edge. The male sticks around oxygenating the clutch using those skin filaments. Think of it as froggy scuba gear. With low oxygen levels in mountain streams. This adaptation helps keep the developing tadpoles alive. Here's the thing. Not many frogs guard their eggs. Most just dump and dash. But the hairy frog, he stays. And he will defend those babies like a dad with a shotgun in a bad sitcom. And remember what his shotgun is. His toes. If you thought the adults were strange, wait till you meet the babies. Hairy frog tadpoles are born with multiple rows of horn-like teeth. They're carnivorous. Not gently omnivorous like your average pond dweller. These are feral. Researchers believe the teeth help them scrape animal protein off rocks and maybe even take a bite out of each other when resources are tight. Yes, they're sometimes cannibals. Imagine a little wriggly thing with rows of jagged ridges in its mouth and a taste for siblings. That's a hairy frog tadpole. Cute, right? But there's genius in this madness. These adaptations mean the species can thrive in environments with scarce food. When the stream dries or competition rises, the strongest survive. And apparently those are the ones willing to eat their roommates. Locally, the hairy frog is hunted in Cameroon. It's considered a delicacy. Villagers have been known to spear the frogs from a distance rather than handle them directly. And can you blame them? If something has self-deploying claws, I'm not picking it up either. There are whispers of traditional beliefs, too, like the idea that eating these frogs can help with fertility. Science hasn't confirmed this, but if you're eating a bone-clawed frog hoping for babies, you're already making bold life choices. In any case, the hairy frog has earned its respect in folklore and survival strategies. It's the kind of animal that appears in myths. Only it's real. And it's covered in fur-like filaments that scream, back off. Let's go deeper into the body. The hairy frog is built like a tank. Compact, heavy set with powerful hind limbs and a deceptively calm exterior. Beneath that skin, things are happening. Bones poised to snap. Muscle arrangements that allow for claw deployment. A respiratory system adapted to fluctuating oxygen levels. Unlike many amphibians, hairy frogs can handle brief periods out of water. Their skin's not great at retaining moisture, but those cool mountain environments help. And when they're not foraging or fighting, they rest in burrows or under rocks, silently flexing their toes just in case. Officially, the hairy frog is listed as least concern. It has a relatively wide range. It's not under direct global threat and it's still commonly found in its habitat. But that doesn't mean it's safe. Deforestation, logging, climate change, expanding agriculture, the usual suspects. as habitats shrink and water systems get polluted. Frogs are among the first to vanish. They breathe through their skin. Their eggs need clean water. Their world is fragile. And unlike pandas or elephants, the hairy frog isn't a poster child. It doesn't get conservation campaigns or plush toys. But its loss would still be a tragedy. A whole branch of evolutionary weirdness gone forever. Researchers want to study it more, not just for the claws, but for insights into regenerative biology, amphibian respiration, and evolutionary adaptation. But that requires habitats to protect and funding to pursue. So if you're looking for a cause, consider fighting for a frog that fights back. The hairy frog is nature's absurd answer to the question. What if a frog was also a knife? It's messy. It's bizarre. It's biologically inefficient in the most glorious way. But it works. It reminds us that evolution doesn't always sculpt beauty. Sometimes it goes off script and builds a rage-fueled amphibian with bone knives and leg hair. And we love it for that. Rest well. Dear dreamer, next time someone tells you frogs are boring, just point them to Trias robustus. Tell them about the claws, the cannibal tadpoles, the spit and sprint fathers, the broken bone warfare. And if they still aren't impressed, well, maybe they need a little reminder that even the smallest, quietest creatures can hide the sharpest surprises. The immortal jellyfish, the death-dying drifter of the deep. Imagine a creature no bigger than your pinky nail. Glass clear, delicate, barely a whisper in the ocean current. It floats through warm waters, pulsing gently like a heartbeat made visible. It has no bones, no brain, no heart. But what it does have is something no other animal on Earth can claim. Not a tortoise, not a whale, not even a tardigrade can reverse aging. Not metaphorically, not slows the clock. Literally, biologically, it grows old and then gets young again. We're plunging beneath the waves to meet the tiny translucent marvel known as Turtopsis dohrnii, the immortal jellyfish. It won't be flexing muscles or firing electric shocks. This isn't that kind of superpower. This is subtler, stranger, and arguably far more powerful. The Mediterranean Sea, warm, clear, and ancient, somewhere off the coast of Italy in the late 1800s. A German marine biologist peered into a petri dish and met a mystery. He discovered a minuscule jellyfish that defied all the rules of life cycles as we knew them. It wasn't until the 1990s, though, that we realized what this jellyfish could really do. At a glance, Turtopsis dohrnii isn't much to look at. Its bell is less than 5 millimeters across. You could blink and miss it. Its body is almost entirely water, around 95%. And its thin veil of tissue is nearly invisible. You wouldn't see it if you were swimming next to it. But what's inside? Well, that's another story. In the traditional jellyfish life cycle, a fertilized egg becomes a larva, which becomes a polyp, which clones itself into dozens of medusae, the classic jellyfish form. Eventually, the medusae die. Full stop. That's the end. But not for T. dohrnii. When injured, starved, or exposed to stress, this jellyfish doesn't die. It reverts. Its adult body collapses inward, reshaping itself at the cellular level into a younger form. It reverts all the way back to a polyp, the earliest stage of jellyfish life, and begins again. Not a new generation. The same individual. A hard reset. A second life. And a third and a fourth and so on. Biological immortality. A phrase that feels like science fiction. But for this jellyfish, it's Tuesday. So, how does this even work? Most animals have specialized cells. Heart cells. Skin cells. Nerve cells that do one thing for life. They can't switch roles. They can't decide mid-career to become something else. But T. Dornay has mastered something called transification. That means its cells can transform. Muscle can become nerve. Stomach can become skin. The blueprint gets scrambled and reassembled like Lego bricks reshuffling into a whole new model. Under stress, instead of dying, the jellyfish's adult form begins to regress. Its bell shrivels. Its tentacles are reabsorbed. Its body anchors to a surface and transforms into a tiny blob-like polyp colony. Essentially its childhood home. From there it begins to bud new medusae. Not offspring clones, sort of, but it's still it. Same genetic material, same creature. It's as if your grandmother turned into a baby version of herself and started over. Memories wiped. Body renewed. Name unchanged. This process has no known natural limit. In theory, T. Dornay could repeat it indefinitely, bypassing the aging process and the Reaper alike. Of course, immortality doesn't mean invincibility. T. Dornay can still be eaten, can still be poisoned, can get caught in the net, digested by a sea slug, torn apart by turbulence. Life in the ocean is dangerous. And immortality, it's only triggered by stress. The jellyfish doesn't reset itself on a whim. It does it when it's injured, starving, or facing hostile conditions. Immortality in this case isn't a lifestyle. It's a survival mechanism. And survival in the sea is never guaranteed. Still, the very existence of such a mechanism, one that undoes biological aging, is an evolutionary flex of breathtaking boldness. One tiny creature decided to opt out of the normal life cycle. And nature said, fine, let's see where this goes. Pteridotopsis dornii originated in the warm Mediterranean. But now it's found nearly everywhere in oceans around Japan. In tropical and temperate waters. Often carried unknowingly in the ballasted water of cargo ships. Wherever they drift, they spread. And because they're so small, they're rarely noticed. They're like ghosts in the plankton. Quiet, ubiquitous, eternal. And unlike many marine animals, they're nearly impossible to study in the wild. We see their effects. We isolate them in the lab. But we've barely scratched the surface of their natural behavior. What do they do when no one's watching? How often do they reset? Do they remember anything? Hard to say. They don't have a brain in the way we do. No central command center. But they do have a nerve net. A diffused web of sensory cells. They react to light, to touch, to chemicals in the water. They move, eat, sense, survive. And then when the moment comes, they become young again. Naturally. Scientists want to know what T. Dornay can teach us. Could understanding its cellular pathways help us reverse aging in humans? Cure cancer. Repair tissues. Trigger regeneration. These aren't idle dreams. We're already learning how to reprogram human cells. Turning skin into stem cells. For instance, T. Dornay may hold deeper secrets about how to do that safely. Repeatedly. And with more control. It's also making us rethink what aging really is. Is it inevitable, or is it in some species just one option of many? What Tony tells us is that biology is not a fixed system. It's a fluid one. Life can be more flexible than we imagine, and nature always has more cards to play than we expect. Why does immortality fascinate us so much? Maybe it's because death is the ultimate deadline. The one thing we can't dodge. Maybe because we crave more time. Or maybe we want a second chance to begin again. Pteridotopsis dornii has that power. But here's the twist. It doesn't use that power to accumulate memories or wisdom or greatness. It just starts over. It's not immortal in the mythic sense. It doesn't learn. It doesn't evolve from experience. It doesn't grow in knowledge or legend. It simply survives over and over again. A perfect biological loop. And maybe in that sense, It's not a role model, but a reminder that survival itself, even in the simplest form, is extraordinary, that life at its core is persistence. Despite its talents, Tournai exists on a razor's edge. It's tiny, transparent, vulnerable, and like so many marine species, it faces threats we're only beginning to understand. Rising ocean temperatures, acidification, pollution, microplastics, even immortals have limits. And ironically, its very ability to reset makes it hard to study, track, or protect. You can't tag one. You can't follow its lifespan. It's like trying to count raindrops in the ocean. So, while the jellyfish may have cracked the code to aging, it hasn't cracked the code to survival in a world shaped by us. Here's what I want you to imagine as you drift toward sleep. A soft current, the hush of deep water, a translucent bell pulsing like a heartbeat, tiny tentacles trailing, catching plankton, floating through the dark like a thought you almost forgot. And then something changes. A shadow passes. A wave crashes. The jellyfish curls in on itself. And instead of dying, it begins again. Cells rearrange. Time turns backward. What was old becomes young. What was fading becomes fresh. It does this not once but forever. Over lifetimes of lifetimes. Over eras. Over changes in the sea it cannot name. It doesn't know that it's a marvel. It doesn't need to. But we know. And tonight, as you sleep, the ocean keeps turning. And somewhere in the depths, something impossible is still happening. Dolphin, the ocean's brainiac, somewhere out there, cutting through the waves, is a creature with the mind of a philosopher, the soul of a poet, and the swagger of a showman. It laughs, plays, it solves problems. It dreams with one eye open. Now we meet the dolphin, the genius of the deep, the aquatic enigma whose brain may not only rival our own, but in some ways surpass it. The guy that can sleep with only one half of its brain at a time. Let's start with that brain because, darling, that's where all the magic lies. The bottlenose dolphin Tursops truncatus has a brain that weighs around 1,600 g. That's heavier than the average human brain, which clocks in at about 1,300 to 1,400 g. But it's not just about size. It's about structure. Dolphin brains are fantastically convoluted with more folds than our own. More folds mean more surface area, more room for neurons and more neural real estate for thinking, processing, feeling, the part of the brain associated with higher order thinking. The neocortex is proportionally massive in dolphins. They also have an enlarged iliac system, the area responsible for emotion, social behavior, and memory. In other words, they may feel deeply as well as think deeply. And then there's the ultimate test of intelligence. Self-awareness. In mirror recognition tests. That is the hey that's me moment. Dolphins pass with flying colors. A dolphin can look at itself in a mirror and recognize that it's not another dolphin. It's them. This puts them in the company of just a handful of animals including great apes, elephants, and magpies. They know who they are. And perhaps more importantly, they know that you know. Now, let's talk about one of their most astonishing abilities. Echolocation. Dolphins live in a world where light doesn't reach very far. The ocean is a murky place. So instead of relying on vision, they've evolved a way to see with sound. Using clicks, sharp, high-frequency sounds, dolphins emit a stream of pulses. These clicks bounce off objects in the environment and return as echoes. With just the timing and shape of these echoes, dolphins can build a mental map of their surroundings. Not just that there's a thing over there, but how big it is, what shape, whether it's hollow, what texture. Dolphins can tell the difference between a copper plate and an aluminum one. They can see inside things. They could echolocate your heartbeat. In fact, some researchers believe dolphins may be able to create mental images from echolocation, like sound photos. In 2015, an artist used a 3D scanner and dolphin echo recordings to reconstruct what a dolphin saw when echolocating a submerged human. The result: a detailed, ghostly outline of a person clear enough to recognize. Just imagine seeing with sound, sensing the soul inside the shell. Communication is at the heart of dolphin life. Not just casual squeaks, but full conversations. Structured, personalized, and sometimes deceptive. Every dolphin develops a unique signature whistle, a kind of acoustic name that it uses to announce itself. And they use each other's names, too. If one dolphin wants to call another, it mimics their signature whistle. They remember those names for decades, in some cases for over 20 years. They also share information, coordinate during hunts, and yes, gossip. Dolphins have been observed using burst-pulsed sounds to establish dominance or resolve disputes without physical confrontation. That's right, diplomacy. And let's not forget their comedic timing. Dolphins have been known to mimic human voices, imitate mechanical sounds, and even prank researchers by responding to commands with surprising twists. One famous dolphin once trained the human to toss it more fish by pretending to respond slowly, then cashing in with a dramatic performance. If you think they're playing 2D chess, think again. These are 3D strategists in 4D oceans. Here comes the sci-fi part. Dolphins never fully sleep. If they did, they drown. Instead, they sleep with half of their brain at a time. One hemisphere shuts down. Neurons go quiet. The eye on that side closes, and the body goes into restful stillness. But the other half stays awake, alert to danger, surfacing for air every few minutes. After a while, they swap. The left side sleeps. The right takes over. This is called uni-hemispheric slow-wave sleep, and it's one of the most unique neurological feats in the animal kingdom. Birds do it too, but dolphins are the masters. They've been recorded going 2 full weeks with 0 signs of full brain sleep and no cognitive decline. Sleep while swimming with one eye open. Try that at your next business retreat. In Shark Bay, Australia, a female dolphin dives down with a sea sponge balanced on her snout. She pushes it along the seafloor, stirring up prey while protecting her skin. This is not random. This is tool use, the dolphin equivalent of using oven mitts. And it's passed down from mother to daughter. Not by instinct, by teaching. This means dolphins have culture. They pass down behaviors, local dialects, hunting techniques, social customs. In some populations, they form alliances, long-term friendships, and strategic coalitions that last decades. Male dolphins will team up in pairs or trios to court females and then team up again in larger groups to defend their courting rights. Politics, tools, culture. Sound familiar? Now, let's talk emotion. Dolphins have been seen carrying dead calves on their backs, keeping them afloat for days. Mourning, possibly. A refusal to let go. Absolutely. They've also been observed helping injured companions to the surface. In captivity, they've formed bonds with humans, other animals, even orangutans. In the wild, they play, they surf, they toss puffer fish around, apparently for fun, and possibly for mild intoxication. Yes, really, their brains are wired for feeling and they feel deeply. Of course, intelligence doesn't mean innocence. Dolphins have dark sides, too. There are documented cases of infanticide, coercion, even recreational violence. They are not the Disneyified angels of the sea. They are complicated like us. They've been known to manipulate situations, lie to trainers, deceive other dolphins. They've also saved humans, pushing drowning people to shore, protecting swimmers from sharks. But the point is this: they are sentient, conscious, clever, capable of both kindness and cruelty. Real minds, not robots. Despite their brilliance, dolphins face a gauntlet of human-created threats. Pollution, plastic, noise, fishing nets, captivity, climate change, boat strikes, underwater noise pollution from sonar, drilling, and shipping interferes with their echolocation. It's like someone blasting white noise into your ears every time you try to see. The ocean, once a vast acoustic playground, has become a danger zone. Some populations are crashing. Some are sickened by toxic runoff. And while some live long lives in the wild, captivity is another story. Intelligent animals need stimulation, space, social connection. In tiny tanks, they often become depressed, erratic, even self-destructive. We now know better and we're starting to act better. But the clock is ticking. So here we are in awe because dolphins are more than marine mascots or aquarium entertainers. They are reminders